Hi everyone, and welcome back to Minds Over Magic. We are your hosts, Katya and Katheryn.
Hi.
And today we're doing something a little different. We're joined by author Evan Kidwell, and we'll be diving into the psychology behind his young adult novel, Timeaous Spark and the Luck Curse. So we're really excited for this one. We'll keep this mostly spoiler-free, so you can still enjoy the story. Evan, welcome.
Thank you for
We're
having me.
so happy to have you here.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
For anyone who hasn't read the book yet, how would you describe the story?
Yeah, so I have a flawed society caste system that exists in my book. That is a way for the government to control their constituents. And I have students that go to a magical academy in order to unlock a series of powers. Their goal is to unlock powers so they can increase their standing in society. But the government's goal is to actually put them through a series of very intense, strenuous tests, almost like trials, like a almost Hunger Game feel to it, as a way to make sure that those kids get placed in the right spot in society faster and sooner rather than later. And so they go through these very intense trials, they unlock powers, and then the government puts them in the hierarchy. So it's actually more important that where they land in the hierarchy system than which powers they even unlock. So it's a fun dynamic that I've created.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a fantastic story.
Thank you.
I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
What made you want to tell this story?
There's several things that actually made me want to tell this story. First and foremost, I actually had a dream about this exact hierarchy system about 5 years ago. I keep a dream journal because I have very vivid dreams. So I dream like you would see a movie, right? And so I remember waking up and being like, oh, I got to capture as much of this as I can remember in 30 seconds because you lose it in about 30 seconds after waking up. So and so I've been thinking about this for about 4 years. And then I was at a leadership conference. My background is actually not in authorship. It's actually in insurance. And I was at an insurance leadership conference. And the keynote speaker from stage got up on stage and said, I want everybody to write down on their piece of paper something that scares them and something that excites them that they want to accomplish next year. It needs to be the same thing. Scared and excited, right? And so I wrote down write my book. That was for me. That was for nobody else. And I always try to be a good student. So sitting in the front row. And he points right at me and says, you have something on your paper? I said, yep. And he says, great, come up on stage. His whole keynote session was literally grilling me on why I wanted to write my book. And as soon as I get up on stage, he goes, oh, so, because I said write my book. And he goes, so like an insurance book, a finance book? No, a fantasy book.
And everyone's like, oh, I'll read that.
So that was what triggered me actually sitting down and writing a little bit every day, because now I had a bit of a deadline and I had 400 people and peers keeping me accountable to this goal. So
Was there a follow-up to that conference? They were supposed to check on your progress?
Well, so yes and no. It wasn't like the keynote followed up with me. I did reach back out to the keynote and was like, I did it, right? But
oh, nice.
But my peer after I got off stage, he said, you know what this means, right? And I was like, what? And he says, you can't show up at the same event next year without a book. Like it just not with this group of people. You already said you wanted to do it. Now you need to go do it. And so I was like, dang, you're actually right. So I did. And then what was fun is at that same event, again, not authorship related at all, at that same event this next year, I launched about 4 days prior to the event. And so they did announce it from stage like, hey, remember he got up on stage last year. He made this proclamation. He did it. And so they did a bit of a plug for my book at that point too. So.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then all the people who wrote on their piece of paper and did nothing were like, oh.
Why did he call me on stage?
I'm pretty sure nobody was saying, why didn't you call me on stage?
Yeah. No, it's very powerful, isn't it? Like, I sometimes do that when I was like, okay, right, I'm going back to the gym. And I'll message all my friends.
Yeah.
They're friends, like a few months later, it's like, no, guys, sorry, I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it anymore. I missed a day, so I'm out, right?
It's a good thing. It's a good thing, shit, that her personal trainer reads the book and listens to our podcast, because she cannot get out of the gym now.
There you go.
You have to go.
It's true, actually.
I think there's something to be said for announcing it to people that will keep you accountable that are not your immediate family. Because if I had told my wife, she would have been like, "That's good. It's good for you," right? Like she would.
Yeah.
Whatever. Whenever that happens.
Good,
that's
honey. Whatever
great.
you want.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. So you came up with the story about 5 years ago, 5 years before the conference?
I came up with hierarchy structure and the genuine premise behind the book. So the kids unlock powers from mythical beings of old. So like Phoenix, for example. They don't exist in our world anymore. It is a parallel world to our world. But my idea actually came from my daughter, who was born 4 years ago. And that was, if powers were passed on to human beings have every capacity genetically to continue those powers onwards. So the powers have passed along generation to generation via genetics, which means you can have a lot of fun things that happen. And obviously, I do describe my book as a magic fantasy book. It's not just powers that get unlocked. The world has components of magic in it still, right? If mythical beings of old could pass their powers on to humans, why couldn't they pass their powers on to places, right? So I have that magical feel to it. But so I had been thinking about that idea for about 5 years. And at the end of the day, and I know we're going to get into this in a little bit, but I knew I wanted to create a system where people had powers, and some people have powers and some people don't. I was always influenced by those kinds of stories growing up as a kid. Power Rangers, I was, the OG Power Rangers, right? Like you look at things like X-Men, and we relate to those kinds of stories. So I knew I wanted to do powers. And I was trying to figure out how to turn Timeaous, my primary character, into, like, how do I turn resilience into a power, right? Like, what would that look like? And so that was kind of what started my thought process around, okay, this luck curse, right? Which, not giving spoilers, but, what would that look like, and how does it manifest as a power? So.
Yeah. Well, this is a great story. Like, I really enjoyed it, and it ticks so many boxes for me. Like, magic itself, I absolutely love it. Like, I love the story behind it. And as I said, they did, evolve from creatures and it passed down. I think it's great. And the social complexity, it's just chef's kiss. because it's not just about people with magic versus people with no magic.
Right.
Like, we see that in Harry Potter. We see that kind of in Percy Jackson. Like, if you have magic, that's it.
Yeah.
But here you actually, you go deeper. There is hierarchy within, which is great. And to me, that was like, wow, this is something new.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
What was the most fun part of building this world?
Yeah, so I had a lot of fun parts. I think the most fun is actually knowing where it's going next, right? Like, now that I've written the book 1, I know what's happening in the series. I already have book 2 and 3 mapped out in my head. Now I just have to get it out of my head, right?
Yeah.
That's a process, right? But when you get the creative juices flowing and you go, oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do this. Oh, I can't fit this into this book. It's got to go to the next book, right? Like, it's almost like I become a kid again, and I allow myself the ability to imagine. And when I was a kid, I did that a lot, actually. And as an adult, I did that less, right? So when you get into your world and you're working every day and you've got a family, you're not trying to be creative. And as a kid, I was bullied quite a bit. Actually, as a kid, I was a miracle baby, so I was born 3 months premature at a time when medicine isn't where it is today. But what that turned into was I was always the smallest kid in every class I ever attended, which meant I was the easy target, right? Like, go after the little kid that can't defend himself, right? And so what I found myself doing growing up as a kid, and I didn't really recognize this until I was an adult, and really until I went through this process, was I found myself hanging out by myself on the playground, right? I didn't want to get bullied. I didn't want to get picked on. So I hung out by myself. Well, how do you play by yourself? You use your imagination. I watch my own children do it. Like, they do imaginative play, right? And so I created these characters that I would interact with, and they were very real to me. And now as an adult, I can actually bring some of those same characters and components into my book, and it's fun. It's like reawakening something inside me that I forgot I even had, right? And so that's, I think, the most fun part, is that creative journey going through this process.
You also used a coping mechanism to create a narrative,
Yep.
to create these magical things that actually turned out to be success.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, little bullies.
Thank you, little bullies.
Thank you, little bullies. You created a genius.
Yeah, and maybe it was more that they unlocked the genius inside of me. I might have already been a genius, but
Well, really created
There
a
you
genius.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this is a super important topic for children, for parents, for guardians, for teachers, for professionals like Katheryn, who you deal with it regularly, right? And I mentioned your book to a few of our listeners, and they're very interested. And actually, some of them are teachers, and they were like, "Oh, we want to get it for our class library, so it's available for kids in their class." Because it's something that teachers and everybody keeps an eye on now. I think maybe when before it was kind of overlooked a little bit, but now there's so much focus on it. And Katheryn, I was wondering if you could give us some points on how to deal with bullying. Either if people are dealing with themselves or their children are going through it.
Absolutely. If someone's experiencing bullying for the first time, I think, the first thing that I would say is don't try to handle it alone. Never handle it alone. Bullying thrives in silence. And whether it's a trusted adult or a teacher or a parent or even a friend, bring someone else in. It always changes the dynamic. And I think that's what you did with a lot of your imaginary friends. You brought them in to change the dynamic of bullying. So that actually created a village around you and safe people to talk to, even though it was, and I think children do this a lot anyway, with other things as well. So I also encourage people to get really clear on what's actually happening. So sometimes writing it down helps, and what is said or when, who is involved, because that can also help emotionally and practically if you need to report it. That's just another part of the piece of that bullying puzzle. But then there's that internal piece that bullying can really start to shape how someone sees themselves, especially for kids. So part of the work is helping them separate who they are from what's being said to them. Just because someone's treated less than doesn't mean that they are. So it's really important to separate that. As a parent, what you're often looking for are changes more than anything else. So things like withdrawing from friends or activities that they used to enjoy, changes in mood or anxious or irritability, being sad, physical complaints, so like headaches or stomach aches, especially around school time, changes in sleep or appetite, and suddenly not wanting to go to school at all sometimes. And sometimes kids won't tell you directly, so their behavior becomes the communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you do suspect something, the goal isn't to interrogate. It's to create a space, a safe space for them to feel safe enough to share. And that might sound like, I've noticed you haven't seemed like yourself lately. Do you want to talk about it? Or most importantly, you want them to know that they're not alone and it's not something that they have to just endure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your point, Dr. Kat, I actually, so I was I grew up in the Christian home, and I was actually bullied more in the church than I even was at school.
Oh, wow.
And so I did exactly what you just described, where my parents were like, "Okay, you ready to go to church?" And I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to go to church. Like, they treat me no different, actually worse than when I go to school. And so it was very cliquey. It was very, well, you're not part of my group, or you're little, or you can't play sports, or all of those kinds of things have a direct impact on how kids interpret the world. And so I did get to a point as a kid where I just felt like I wasn't good enough, and nobody wanted me, and all of those things. And my saving grace was actually I was the kid who, when a new kid would come into school, I'd try to make friends with that kid because they didn't know any better yet. So, and I've always been a really good friend. And so I remember to this day, one of my best friends, his name's Zach.
Hi, Zach.
Hi, Zach. So he ended up joining our school in like 3rd grade, and he was homeschooled prior to that. And I remember almost like latching on to him, like, you're my friend now. And he was so patient and so giving and all of those things. And there were times where I could tell that maybe I was being a little more obnoxious than I probably, maybe as an adult I can tell that, not necessarily as a kid can you tell that, but he didn't, he just loved on me, like from a friend perspective. And that was my kind of my pathway out, was that support system that you just described. Was I found one friend that appreciated me for me, even though I'm sure I was annoying as a kid, right? So.
But who isn't annoying as a kid? I mean, come on. They're good at it. That's why they're children, and they, it's great. I think about this a lot, and I think when you were too much, he became more.
Yes.
Because if I say, if you think I'm too much, you just need to be more.
Yeah.
Because just that's, authenticity. Katya is always more for me.
That's awesome.
Sometimes too much, yeah. Yay.
Well, thank you very much. It's very, very useful, I think, especially for parents, to hear that, because, I'm always looking for clues. I'm always like looking at my son when I pick him up from school, and especially when he's a little bit like, I'm just trying to get it out of him, because we're so aware of this these days. I think our parents were probably a little bit more like, nah, they'll figure it out, well, we are.
That's how it used to be. I mean, and you didn't have the same attention from parents back in the day. You just got on with life, and you had to, to just do what you needed to do. There's a lot of latchkey kids. There was a lot of kids staying home alone. And now times have changed, and we've got social media, and we've got a lot of different ways of being raised. And so it's actually, I think it's a lot more difficult now than it was back then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sure. I agree. Yeah, so thank you for that. Now going back to the system.
Yes.
It feels quite cruel and unfair, but if anything, it actually translates very well into the real world, which again is something that I really like. But again, it's normalized, in the book. And so my question is, what's actually in it for non-Cree? Like, why do they comply with it? Is it fear or?
Well, there's definitely a component of fear. Okay. The other thing is, and I hint at this heavily in my book, but I never actually give what the actual consequences are. But I hint at things like there's fates worse than death, or there is, and how do you describe a fate worse than death? I know what that is because I know where my book is going, but you don't, right? Even the reader in the first book doesn't know what that means, right? And
you can imagine it, though.
You can imagine it, right? And so yes, yes, I do actually. So what I love, Katya, about you specifically is you are a reader at heart first and foremost. I was always a reader before I was an author, so I try to do what I would want to see as a reader. And one of those things is I allow the reader to use their own imagination in lots of different scenarios in my book. I'm not your typical fantasy writer from let's just overly flower everything and describe every flower in detail. I don't, because I know that the mind's eye can create those details as you go. So I focused more in my book on character development and the friendship bonds and those kinds of things. But back to your question about non-Cree, there's two components. One is fear, okay, and that is definitely heavily relied on. The government uses it to kind of keep control. Two is it is also a component of fear, but it's also non-Crees are the individuals in my book who have no powers, okay? how does someone who has no powers go up against someone who has very strong powers? Right? It's not necessarily a thing. It's almost the inverse of like how X-Men work. X-Men's like in the shadows, like, you know, the normal people, and you don't necessarily mention that you have these powers because you don't want them to chastise you. So it's almost the opposite, right? Like the society knows you don't have the powers, and if you try to stand up against it, you're going to get hit with a whole community of people who have banded together under this hierarchy scheme. And so, and really, Dr. Kat, you actually said it really well about bullying thrives in silence. It's about keeping those non-powered individuals silenced and not wanting to push against. If they can't band together as a community, then what's the likelihood they're going to be able to overthrow a community of people and with powers, right? And so there's definitely that component. And Katya, that was intentional. I wanted it to feel like the real world. There are a lot of parallels, but I also wanted it to be an adventure people could relate to and move forward with and enjoy, right? So, but yeah, no, that would be, I think, the biggest thing from a non-Crea's perspective is I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want something to happen worse than death, right? Or I don't know what's happened to my own family members, and I just don't want to risk it, right? And so they just kind of just stay stuck in that mode of servitude because that's how it's been, at least for the last 30 years. There was a civil war that almost broke out 30 years ago because people weren't classed correctly, right? And therefore, that's why the trials actually got introduced. So,
Can I just ask a question?
yeah.
Is Anom part of the fate worse than death?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
Anom, it stands...
I don't want you to give out too much.
No, Anom stands for anomaly. So there are two ways to be classified as an Anom. Okay, one is you unlock more than one power. You can't fit nicely into a boxed system if you have two powers and one puts you here and one puts you here, right? Like that doesn't do well, right? So that's one way to become an Anom. Part two is you don't listen to the rules, right? I actually have a very extreme instance in my book where someone didn't listen to the rules because he was afraid of a higher up bloodline. I call them bloodlines in my book. But he chose to not listen to the rules, you know, damn the consequences, because he was afraid of this higher bloodline. He became an Anom because I wanted to be very clear that if you don't follow the rules we set in front of you, we'll put you as Anom. So Anom, though, is it's not the fate worse than death necessarily, but it is a terrible fate because with Anom, you get outcast from the community altogether. Right? You are no longer part of the community. You no longer get access to the resources. You don't get access to anything, right? Like you're on your own, right? You are outcast from our society altogether. How do you deal with being an outcast when you no longer get access to any resources, anything, right? Like what does that look like, and how do you overcome that? So it can be a fate worse than death. I will say, if I'm speaking to the reader for a second, if the Anom allows it to be, right? They do have choices. They just don't have access to the community anymore. And so I do hint heavily at that as well. But the other thing too is I use Anoms and Non-Creas as there's a reason in my book everyone gets access to the same meals, and they're like these lavish meals. It's, Non-Creas are used to stale bread, moldy bread, bruised apples, that kind of stuff, right? And so, but they all have access to this amazing meals. Non-Creas and Anoms do too. And the point of that is I actually am creating almost a desire from the lower classes to keep getting those kinds of rewards. And what's going to end up happening is, and I can say this because this isn't like a spoiler, this is how my society functions, right? Is the government then uses the lower classes to help spy on the upper classes and make sure they're following the rules. And by doing so, they actually get access to those same meals and stuff. So there's some incentives for the lower classes to become size of the upper classes, if that makes sense. So.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah. I really like the idea of Anom, actually. And when I was reading it, I was thinking about depression.
Yeah.
When, in a certain part of the book, when Timeaous goes to visit one of the characters, and I was just like, oh, that just reads like a depression.
Yeah.
Like an... yeah.
Well, and that was exactly what I was going for. So the Anom
Okay.
society on campus, right? With those that are Anoms, they feel dejected. They all have the same answer when he's trying to find his friend, right? The friend that didn't obey the rules, and they're all giving the same response of like, "There's nothing here for you," right? Because they're so far removed now from the rest of society. It's also hinted here that because they all have the same responses, it's also hinted that they also kind of figure out how to create their own community, if that makes sense, but only of Anoms. So that's hinted because they all had the same response, right? That was intentional, right? So so anyways, that depression, the dejection, the I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, like I'm not a part of society anymore. Like I felt a lot of that as the isolated kid. Right?
Yeah.
I felt like I was rejected, dejected, didn't have access to friends who wanted me or people who wanted me to be part of their community. So I definitely brought a lot of that influence into those scenes, especially around the Anoms. And what I will say is book 2 will have more Anom entries than book 1 did. Book 1 had a handful. But I wasn't trying to focus on the Anoms in book 1, right? I was trying to focus on the building, the community, the hierarchy, that kind of stuff. So
I think it's so interesting too, is how you say society rejects the Anom or rejected you as a kid, and now you have created your own society.
yeah.
And then they start to create their own society because there's something about that fitting in and belonging that if you're not going to accept me, I will find a way to be accepted in my own right. And that's
right.
what you even done through the book, because there's other people that are feeling that way, and those people suffering in silence.
Right.
And now you're creating this community that actually is able to thrive.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, back to our main character.
Yeah.
So Timeaous understands what kind of world he's in, which is actually quite heartbreaking because he's still a child.
Yeah.
And I think it's that he's quite resilient and his inner strength. That's where I felt the connection with him, and I was rooting for him from page 1. Like, he's great.
I love that.
Was he always the main character when you started writing, or was there somebody else and then that switched?
Yeah, no, he was always the main character. That was by design, and so interestingly enough, I actually knew I wanted to work with him as the main character from page 1, but I also, from the inner workings of an author for a second, I was really trying to figure out how to turn time into a name. And that was intentional. I have a reason for that, right? But the only way I could think of turning time into a name was Timeaous, right? And like that was the only way I could think of doing it. And so his name was Timeaous pretty early on. Now, where that I guess might have harmed me is people don't even know how to spell the book, right? So I tell people, oh, it's Timeaous, right? Like, and people don't know how to say it, but actually, I don't actually care that people don't know how to say it because at the end of the day, I didn't know how to say Hermione either until the movies came out. So like, right? So, but no, Timeaous was always meant to be the main character. I really wanted to bring out his resilience, his courage. He doesn't want to be locked into this fate that the rest of society is telling him, this is your fate, and just accept it. Like, you don't have another choice. You just accept it. That is how we work in this society. And where I really actually enjoyed the writing process of Timeaous specifically was when he finally realizes he actually has a choice, right? Because he does end up unlocking a power. His family's been powerless for forever. But doesn't mean that a long time ago his family didn't have powers at some point, right? Genetics are funny that way, right? You could have nobody in your family that's a redhead, and then 10 generations later you get a redhead, right? Like that's how genetics work. And so, but now he has a choice. By unlocking a power, the luck curse, which it's basically yin and yang, but all the bad luck seems to fall on Timeaous, so he doesn't see it as a good power. But it's still a power. By unlocking it, he could increase his social standing, right? So he can increase his social standing and not be a servant anymore. Everything he's ever wanted in his whole life just happened. And his mentor says, don't do it, right? Like, he basically says, that's a bad idea because that power is seen as a power that is hard to control. And if society can't control you, you're in a bad spot, right? And so basically he now has to elect himself to go, okay, I'd rather be a servant, which is everything I didn't want the rest of my life, than allow somebody else to control me, right? Like, I'm taking control of my own fate by saying yes to servanthood versus by whether or not I reveal my power. That is a big pivot moment for Timeaous. And so, yes, I love writing from Timeaous' perspective, but he was the main character always. Now, I did do something intentional with him that I really, and I have a writing coach, mentor who wrote in the mystery space, actually, not the fantasy space, but he's got like 16 books out. And I was asking him how to do this with Timeaous. And that is, Timeaous is basically a blank slate. And the reason for that is because the reader is learning about the world that I created through Timeaous' eyes. If you think about it in like Harry Potter, Harry was the blank slate. He didn't know anything about the world, and everyone taught him about the world, and as he learned it, the reader learned it, right? Same concept, right? I wanted him to be a blank slate. Well, how do you turn somebody, like, society's well known, how do you turn something like that into a blank slate? Well, his parents they only ever focused on, here's your life as a servant. Here's your life as hard work. Your life is meant to be hard work, and you just want to please these people. And that was what was kind of trained into him. They didn't, they focused on things like arithmetic, readings, and writings, and how do you do hard work. Well, the other thing hard work does is it does actually instill resilience. Like, if you've ever had to work any sort of job that's manual labor, it instills resilience. And so that resilience still shines through, and that was my intention with Timeaous. So.
I'm so glad you talked about the origin of the name because, I actually went Googling.
She did. She's like, is that how you pronounce? And I was like, I think it's Timeaous. I thought it was Timeaous for some reason but I am, American.
And then I found the, the works by ancient philosophers.
There was one guy with that name. It was spelled slightly differently. That was not my inspiration behind the name. I didn't find out about that until after, and then somebody pointed him out. They're like, "Oh, did you name him after this philosopher?" And I was like, "No."
Oh.
But
I love those things. I love digging into characters' names to like, is that a clue? And then when I saw that, I was like, do I have to read this to understand something?
No. I will say
so glad
there is a clue. There is a clue. I've already kind of given it to you. Time, right? Hidden in his name. I'm not going to tell you what that means yet.
Is it another power? Don't say.
Not saying anything.
I know when he said that, I was like,
straight away I was like, what is it?
because didn't you first say Timeaous? Time?
I said that.
She
we
said
were
that.
chatting.
Yeah.
And then when you said that, and then he said time, and I was like, oh, maybe there's something about that.
Look,
like once we finish recording, I'm just gonna go back and like read it again.
yes. Yeah, well, you won't find the clue in the first book either. Just a heads up.
Okay.
So
He's giving us spoilers that aren't even spoilers yet.
You can't wait for the next one. So, look, one of the things I really enjoyed doing as an author was one, I wanted everything to connect, and if I had it in my book, there was a reason it was in my book. Now, it may not have felt like a reason, but I might be connecting it to something in book 2 or 3 or beyond, right? And so I want everything to connect. I'm not a big fan of, as a reader, I read something and go, what did that happen? Like, I've done that. I've literally read books where I'm like, huh? Like, what was the purpose of that? I will. I'm a big nerd at heart, and I will say like one of the things that drove me crazy was Game of Thrones, the last season, specifically the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there watching it and going, "What was the purpose? Like, why did this character this, and then nothing happened with it? I don't understand, right?" And so, I try to make sure that everything in my book is connected, and I have lots of Easter eggs in my book, and you just may not know it's an Easter egg yet. So
Talk about next book, right?
right, or the next one after that, right? So.
Yeah, I think there are moments which I was like, kind of just there. Can't be just for no reason. There's something behind this. So yeah,
Yep,
I love
yep.
this. That's great.
There's a one I've been asked about. There's a character in my book, book one, named Anatolis, and there's really one scene interaction between him and Timeaous. It was very intentional, and it was one of the magic locations I already kind of referenced in the podcast earlier. Is found out during this interaction between Timeaous and Anatolis. And I've had people go, whatever happened with that guy? Like, nothing more happened in book one. I said, yeah, he is going to be a primary character in book two. But I planted him in book one because I knew I had already wanted to do that. And so if you read the book and you think, why was that there? I don't really understand why there was one scene with this one character and then never again after that for the book. It was intentional because I was setting the stage for book two. So that was one of those scenes where it was important for Timeaous to find the magical spot, right? And there's several reasons for that. But it was also important for me to introduce a book two character in book one because he's going to be a part of book two. So
He makes me nervous, that guy.
Anatolis does?
Yes.
Fair reaction. Don't know his motivations yet.
No, exactly. It's like, But you know what? I am always very suspicious. Every time
See,
there's
I
like
was
a
just going to
character
say
shows up-
that. I was just going to say that. Except when it comes to
Literally.
Dane.
Yeah. So, which character do you relate the most? Is it Timeaous?
No, actually. Yes, so I do relate to Timeaous from the standpoint of the resilience component. There's a lot of horrible things that have happened to me during my lifetime, and learning the lesson of resilience and learning how to get through it and learning how to overcome it has been very important to me and has been pivotal to my own personal story. So I do relate with Timeaous from that perspective. But my favorite character to write is actually Ralph.
Okay.
Ralph is a strategist. Growing up as a kid, my father taught not only myself, but my siblings how to play chess. We loved the idea behind strategy. I'm not by any means like a chess master. I just enjoy playing it, right? I can usually think 2 to 3 moves ahead. I can't usually think 15 moves ahead like some people, right? But I just love those. I've always loved those kinds of characters, right? So in Criminal Minds, the character was Spencer Reed, right? It is the character who is so intelligent that it's almost like their superpower is their intelligence. However, I make it very clear, Ralph has no superpowers. He is a non-Crea. So how does a non-Crea, person without powers, overcome a society that's built on power? He does it with intelligence, right? He's smarter than they are. But it didn't come from a mythical being of old. He's just a smart human being. And that was intentional. And, small spoiler, I will have some characters unlock powers as they go. Ralph's not one of them. I know that for a fact. And so I loved writing, especially the scenes between Ralph and Timeaous, because there was a component of, yes, he's teaching him, but he's also intentional, but they have a fun bond between the two of them. Timeaous was very skeptical of Ralph in the beginning as well. And so, I don't know, I really enjoy those scenes and writing from Ralph's perspective. I relate quite a bit to that because I think when you pause and you actually think about a scenario or think about what you're going through or think about what's happening, you can actually overcome a lot of different things by using your intelligence or using your brain, and you don't even have to be the smartest guy in the room to do so, right? Ralph is never Ralph is often in their class the smartest guy in the room, but a hint at things like there are people that are smarter than Ralph, right? And so he's got to figure out how to overcome that too. So Ralph is my favorite. And if you ask my brother, Denise is his favorite. And again, different component, but same concept of non-Crea, how do you overcome in a world of power, right? Like that kind of thing. She's a tinkerer. She builds things. She's a little engineer, right? Ralph's my favorite, but Timeaous is obviously my close second. And then I will say, I mean, look, I have a heart for all of the characters I put in my book. I really enjoy writing from Fangel's perspective. Book one. So her name is Fangle because I get this question a lot, actually. Like, why did you come up with that name? Her name was originally Angel. I'm just going to put this to rest right now. Her name was originally Angel. She developed fairy powers. Her parents renamed her to Fangle. So, just there's a small spoiler for you.
Yeah, she's actually my favorite. I really like her story.
That's all.
Like, I mean, they're all awesome, to be honest.
We talked about her a little bit before you got on.
Yeah, we talked about it, yeah. I just like her story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's, because she's the opposite too. Like Timeaous in a way.
And you can't see it from your screen, but I actually have character art. And hang on a sec, I'll show you.
That's so beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
So that's Fangle.
Oh.
That's beautiful.
I love it. I was just like, Fangle's got a little tornado there behind her.
Oh, no, I know exactly which scene that is.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to see the other half of the scene?
Yes. Oh, wow.
Okay, does that not capture that scene?
Very
It's very
good.
nice.
That's very good.
Katya knows what I'm talking about. Katya's read the book.
I was looking at it before, and I was thinking, like, I thought it was Timeaous at first, but now you showed it closer. That's not Timeaous.
That is not Timeaous.
No.
That is Professor Undermire. He's the villain in book one.
We're going to cut that out.
Oh, you can't say that? Sorry, that's a spoiler.
Well, you can, but it's a spoiler.
Yeah, you could just be like, spoiler alert. His name is Professor Undermire. He becomes a villain pretty quick in the book, so if you can't get past chapter 3 or 4, then but that's fine. We can cut that out.
That's true. Yeah, it is pretty obvious that he is the bad guy. Though sometimes, I'm also quite skeptical about villains sometimes because they could have ulterior motives, something, and they look like they're villains, but actually they're working for a greater good or something.
That's also true, but Professor Undermire is a true psychopath. That was his deal. And Dr. Kat, it's interesting because my editor was the one that said, she goes, what are his motivations? And Katya, you just kind of hinted at that, right? And I said, and this is how far my psychology went when I wrote the character initially. He's a psychopath. He doesn't have motivations. He doesn't experience emotions like we do. He doesn't have motivations. He's a psychopath. He's just a bad guy. That was my answer to my editor. And they said, no. They said, you need to give us backstory on him because everyone, even a psychopath, has hidden motivations. So, Katya, all the scenes from Professor Undermire's perspective in my book came after my initial manuscript was created.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
So, and I just wouldn't have thought of it that way. And then I really had to put my head into a mindset of, if I'm a psychopath, why would I have these motivations specifically, right? And so that was, I think, the hardest part of my book was trying to figure that out because I'm not a psychopath. I don't think like a psychopath, but I had to put my head into that brainwave space for half a second so that I could write from his perspective and make it believable to a reader. So,
Yes, yeah.
Because he's quite, like, he's obsessive, isn't he?
He's
like, he has
obsessive.
an idea and he's
Yeah.
just going.
And he's very black and white. Like, if that idea doesn't even come close to his version of black and white, like, it's not okay, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think also everybody, I mean, even psychopaths have motives, even if they are ultimately, they almost gain pleasure in that
Yes.
being evil. And
Yes.
it triggers that receptor of pleasure.
Yeah.
Whereas we don't receive pleasure when doing harm, but there's a lot of people that have gone so far to that point that they're just so evil. And I don't even know, if it's underlying trauma as a child either. There are some people that just don't have that remorse switch in them. And
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are
That's
correct
true.
when you said that, sometimes they don't have to have a backstory, but they could have a backstory of just pure evil,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there is
Yeah.
that saying too, hurt people hurt people. So,
Hurt people hurt people. That's a good saying.
yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even though subconsciously consciously you're not meaning to, or you want to subconsciously, you don't, it's not because I was hurt, but it's a lot of times comes out of fear and hurt and insecurity, and mostly insecurity, Yeah. Because when you don't love yourself, you can't love other people.
Can't give what you don't have.
It's too hard. His cup is empty.
His cup is empty.
Well, so Timeaous is clearly courageous, but would you say that he's also ambitious?
He is.
I'm talking about the start of the book.
Yeah.
his
So
ideas.
Timeaous is driven by this initial mindset of, I do not want this. My parents are servants. I've watched them be servants their whole lives. I do not want this to be my life, even though I know that's what is allotted for me. So from an ambition standpoint, he is on a mission to figure out a way out of that world of servanthood, right? Like, he does not want that for his life. Anyone who does not want where they're currently at and they want something more for their lives, that is ambition by definition, I think. So Dr. Kat will correct me if that's not true, but
Got it right there. You got it.
so he's very ambitious. He's very courageous. And his courage isn't just, I'm taking a stand. His courage is to keep getting up after he's getting hurt, to keep powering through. And actually, in the second trial, I even identify that because he's trying to do everything in his own physical powers to get through the trial, but that wasn't what the trial was about, right? And so it's also a bit of his weakness, because that's how he sees the world, and I can just power through. I can just gumption my way through, and not every situation can be solved with just gumption your way through. Sometimes you have to self-reflect. Sometimes you have to realize that it's okay to have in that particular scene to have kind of personal demons that you deal with, or personal weaknesses that you deal with, and acknowledging those weaknesses and knowing that it's okay that they're there is also takes courage, right? And so both courage and ambition, but being able to identify your weaknesses and being okay with them is also a version of courage. So.
Yeah. And what I love about him is just that he's ambitious, obviously, for his own path, but then he's also looking at it from other non-Cree perspective. He's trying to make it better for the whole community, not just for himself, which is that's a lot. That's a big weight as well, to carry. But it's I think it's something that fuels him, right?
Yeah, that's
as
right.
well.
That's right.
One thing I also really liked, that he doesn't stay alone for long. He walks into this world. I love the portal scene, that change, from his world into the new world is like one step, and his life is just upside down. It's so new. He doesn't really know anybody apart from Fangel.
Yep, that's right.
So that scene I like, but then also that he does find his friends relatively quickly. And what I also like is that it's not like they don't come together at the same time.
Right.
It's Ralph first. Well, I think Fangel was there. So, but Ralph. Then it's I think it's Denise, and then it's Sophia after, and it's like gradual, and then they all become friends like around him.
Yeah.
It just felt very natural, like that's how the groups are built. It doesn't just like, oh, we all met in the same,
Woohoo,
same
one
time.
group, right? No, it
exactly.
was meant to be gradual. And okay, I won't say that because that's a bit of a spoiler, but it was intended to be gradual, and it was, yes, he had one friend that he knew but if you think about it, Fangol was his friend from childhood because his parents were servants of her parents. So it's also a strange dynamic to be like, you're my friend. Yeah, you are my friend. Don't get me wrong. But like, they also live in a world where she's not really supposed to be friends with him anymore. Right. And so that's kind of some of their dynamic, is she has to struggle through some of that a little bit. But, that was by design. I didn't want to introduce every character all at once. It's the same reason I had Timeaous interacting with Anatolis by himself in the magic location, right? And so I want to introduce those characters a little bit at a time, a little bit as I go. I know what I'm trying to do in book 2. I know which characters I need to focus more on in book 2 to really kind of bring that out. And it was really important to me to write from different perspectives, not just Timeaous, because I felt like it would make it more relatable, and then you can see the emotions from, Fangol or from Sophia or Denise accordingly. So,
yeah. Yeah, I love that they also all outsiders in a different way.
Yeah.
And they just become this like close-knit group. And I mean, without giving too much away, third trial, my favorite.
You like the third trial or the fourth trial the best? Because you just mentioned all the friends. So are you talking about the last trial or the third trial?
Where they're without Timeaous.
Fourth trial.
Oh, sorry, got that wrong. Okay,
it's okay.
All right, that's why the fourth trial.
Yeah, I knew where you were going with it. I just want to make sure, because I liked all the trials for different reasons, but the fourth trial was my favorite to write. I remember I was writing it and I was on a roll. Now, we actually cut a lot out of that scene. The editor was like, this is repetitive, this is redundant, right? Like, but I remember writing it and being like, oh my gosh, like I'm in the zone right now. I am loving this scene. I'm loving how it's all coming together. And so that is by far my favorite trial as well. And you really see that friendship dynamic build even during the trial, like as it goes, right? So yeah, but no spoilers.
Yeah. No spoilers. Yeah. No, but it's an amazing scene. Like, it was just so much fun to read. Like, yes, all the trials are really, really good. But I think that's just the. Yeah, no, that's gonna be a spoiler. But there is just something very special about that particular trial.
Yeah.
Did you want Timeaous to have that support group,
Yes.
like from early on? Was that, is that to basically help him going through?
Yeah, so it was two parts. One, I wanted the support group to be able to teach Timeaous about the world so that the reader could learn about the world without me telling the reader about the world, right? Like, I didn't want to be like, this is the world, right? Like, I wanted it to be learned through another character, and that was Timeaous. So that was a part of it, right? The other piece is, if we go back to my referencing of Zach was my way out of the bully scene, of being bullied, of feeling like an outcast, or of feeling like, I'm not good enough for people, or people don't like me, right? Like, and, if it weren't for him, I don't know where my life would have ended up. But he was my way out. And so I needed to create that for Timeaous as well. If he has these dreams and ambitions to get out and not be stuck in the mud anymore, he needs to have a support system, and it's clearly not going to be his parents. I made that pretty clear in the book too. Like, they're stuck there in their ways. Like, this is how it is. This is how it always is. You just kind of put one foot in front of the other and move forward, right? And so know what your limits are, but also know that, like, you're here to serve. Like, that was really their mission. There were two groups that I really wanted to help kind of morph Timeous's perspectives as well as his goals moving forward in the series. And the first one was his friend group, and the second one was his mentor. I actually had a mentor. I've had several throughout my life, but I remember specifically my mentor that helped me through high school the most was probably my wrestling coach, right? And it wasn't just him being a coach. It was he genuinely cared. He genuinely cared about my success, what I was doing, what I was after, what my goals were, what my ambitions were, right? He gave me really good advice along the way. And so, like, when I think about Timeaous' relationship with his mentor, Mr. Fix, I really think about that relationship I had with my mentor in high school. And so I think both of those are really important from a psychological perspective, and they both serve different roles. So,
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's so important to have mentors in your life. No, that really shape us. That's all we have for today. Evan, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a great conversation.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Before we wrap up, can our listeners find your book? Where can they find your book and connect with you? And
yeah, so first of all, I'm on Amazon. I'm also Barnes & Noble online, at least not in stores. But the other thing to remember about when you're pursuing independent authors as well, myself included, is if you ever want to go to your local bookstore, you can always ask for the book. They can look it up in their system, right? My book is in their system too. So if you want to support your local bookstore, you could do it that way. But the fastest way is go to Amazon, Timeaous Spark and the Luck Curse, Timeaous, and then Spark. And so that's where you can find me. I'm also heavily involved on Instagram. My Instagram is Evan_Kidwell_author. And I'm on Facebook as well. And then I do have a website as well, TimeaousSpark.com. But those are the places to find me and engage with me. And here's what I will say. First of all, Katja and Dr. Kat, I love this podcast. And Katja, I love that you read the book. Because it allowed us to really interact with each other and engage. I want to hear the feedback from the readers. Oftentimes people, I don't know what the goal is in the authorship community, but I actually want to hear your feedback. It's already given me some good feedback. The manuscript 1 that went out, the first edition, had 5 or 6 editing errors. My editor missed them. Fine, no problem. We fixed them, right? So I would not have known about those errors if readers did not tell me. So Please reach out to me. Please let me know what you'd like to see more of in future books. This is a series, first in the series. So I imagine, based on what's in my head, I'm going to be sitting at about 7 or 8 books. But I will also say it's really important because this gets asked to me all the time. Every time I tell people it's a series that's just getting started, they go, "Oh, I don't want to read it until there's 7 books out." No, it does stand alone on its own as well, right? So it's not. I do not leave you on a cliffhanger, but I do hint heavily that there's going to be a book 2. So I did that on purpose too because I don't like that as a reader either. So anyways, those are the ways to find me, interact with me, and if you personally message me on any of those platforms, I will reach back out. And engage with you. I'm not one to just leave it there and let it be, right? So,
Yeah.
great.
Oh, thank you. It's a wonderful book. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And yes, definitely. Because I read the book, it does have a very kind of like there is a good ending there, and you know that the story continues.
Yeah.
The one chapter closed, and the other chapter about to begin. Yeah, I love that. So if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. It really helps us grow. You can find us on Instagram at mindsovermagic or email us at mindsovermagicpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
And until next time, keep your mind sharp and your heart open.
Bye-bye.